For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. Now, I'm turning my passion into a profession by seeking out old, beat-up guitars and giving them new life, all while trying to make a profit. I'll be searching everywhere for used gear that I can refret, rewire, repaint, whatever it takes to make it a real shredder. This is Trash to Thrash. Look at these two beauties. I've built a lot of Van Halen style guitars, replicas, tributes, different color variations, but these two were really fun to build because they're different than anything I've ever built before. This is an EVH Gear Wolfgang Standard. When it came in, it was an army drab color. I refinished it with Eddie Van Halen's classic Bumblebee finish. And this is an OLP MM1, which is basically a more affordable version of Eddie Van Halen's signature guitar from the early 90s, the Ernie Ball Music Man Axis. For the past few weeks, I've been working on a few different guitars. This Ibanez Pro Line Flying V, this 1996 Jackson Kelly KE3, and this Ibanez RG350. The RG and the Kelly just got their clear coat, so they're going to sit for a couple weeks. And this Ibanez Pro line isn't for a customer, it's just a shop build. It'll be for sale when it's done, but customer guitars always get first priority. Since I have so many customer guitars to work on, I'll set this one aside for just a little bit longer. And I'll show you guys the two EVH guitars I showed you just a second ago. This is an OLP MM1. OLP was a company that was making licensed copies of artist guitars in the 1990s. When a company licenses a product, that means they got permission from the original designers to create their own version of it, usually a more affordable version, and there's an agreement in place that the licensee will pay the licensor some type of fee for each one they make. They worked with a couple companies, including Ernie Ball Music Man. OLP actually stands for Officially Licensed Product. This is the MM1 model, which is a licensed version of Eddie Van Halen's signature guitar, the Ernie Ball Axis. This one, however, has been heavily modified. This is what the guitar looked like when I first bought it. Notice there's no kill switch, and there's no Floyd Rose. It's got a Strat-style trem on it. When I bought this guitar off Reverb, it came in a tobacco burst quilted maple finish. A lot of times when I pick up new guitars for future projects, I'll post them on my Instagram page and see if anybody has any interest in customizing it for their liking. If it doesn't get any bites, I'll do what I think is cool and then put it up for sale. But if somebody wants to buy it and have me customize it for them, custom colors, kill switch in a custom location, anything like that, then if they want to buy it, I'll customize it to their liking. Right away I found somebody who wanted this guitar with a bunch of mods and an EVH paint job. The first big thing they wanted was a kill switch added to the lower horn. When you add a kill switch, it's not just as simple as drilling a hole where the kill switch is going to go, because you need to access the back of the kill switch so you could wire it up. So I opened up a hole, it's about 3 inches around, and then cut a little shelf here so that this cover can sit on the shelf and keep it covered up. Another thing you need to consider is how you're going to wire it up. The kill switch is here, but all the rest of the wiring's over here. So what you got to use is a long drill bit like this, and drill at the perfect angle so you can run your wires across the two cavities. The hole didn't come out perfectly round, but considering that this is a relic Frankenstrat, I thought it was fitting. And also, how would Eddie have done it? Eddie, a lot of times he just worked with what he had and he just kind of did things on a whim. So when I build my Frankenstrats, a lot of times I like to do the same thing. Think like Eddie did. The next big mod on this guitar was adding a Floyd Rose, and that's not as simple as some people might think. This is one of the things I get asked about the most because I'm actually willing to do it. A lot of guitar shops aren't willing to take on adding a Floyd Rose, but it's not cheap. There's a ton of work that goes into modifying a guitar to have a Floyd Rose. But if the guitar already has a Strat-style trem on it, then some of the hard work is done. For non-tremolo guitars with no springs in the back, it's a lot more work. When we talk about bridges, we're talking about the point where the guitar string touches on the body, or the bridge side of the guitar. The string has 2 points of contact, the bridge on the body, and the nut at the headstock. The distance between these 2 points determines our scale length. If this is measured incorrectly, it'll throw off the mathematics of the guitar, which are what make each fret fall in tune to a specific note. The fret lengths and the scale length need to follow a mathematic pattern. This is the reason frets get smaller as you move up the fretboard. The exact middle point between the nut and the bridge is the 12th fret, which produces an octave. When it comes to electric guitar bridges, there are a few different kinds. They mainly break into 2 groups, fixed or tremolo. With fixed, there's string through, where the strings go through the body into ferrules on the back of the guitar. This is supposed to create the most sustain. This particular guitar is an 8-string guitar, so you can see there's 7 standard size string ferrules, and then one real large one. The lowest string on an 8-string is tuned to an F sharp, which is starting to get down into bass territory. There's a tune-o-matic and stop bar tailpiece, like on this Flying V or a Les Paul. There are hardtails, which are screwed down to the body and attached firmly to the top of the guitar. In some cases, the strings don't even come out the back at all. They're only mounted in the front of the guitar in the bridge. There are other style fixed bridges too, but let's move on to tremolo style bridges. Next we have the Strat style tremolo bridge, which allows for a tremolo bar, or a whammy bar as I like to say. For a long time, the holy grail for shredders was the Floyd Rose system. It's still used by many of the top guitarists in the world, but other great alternatives have been designed over the last couple of decades. That being said, Floyd Rose is my favorite. Most tremolo systems utilize springs in the back of the guitar. The tremolo itself is hooked onto these springs, which connect to a claw that is screwed into the body of the guitar. Tightening and loosening these 2 screws here adjust the pitch on the tremolo on the front of the guitar and increase the spring tension. So if the guitar already has a Strat style bridge, it'll have a spring system like this in the back, which makes it a lot easier to add a Floyd Rose to. The cavity still needs to be opened a little bigger for a Floyd Rose, but it's still a lot less work than doing this to a guitar with a hardtail or a string-through system. You can see here where I opened the cavity more, and normally I would do that before painting the guitar so that spot would get painted, but this is how Eddie's original Frankenstrat was. It was painted and then the Floyd Rose was added on years later. You'll also notice that there's a wire connected to the claw here. That wire is soldered onto the ground of the electronics. So the ground travels through that wire, to the claw, through the springs, into the tremolo, and connects to the strings of the guitar. That's why you'll notice that the guitar hums more if you don't touch the strings with your volume all the way up. When you touch the strings, your body actually becomes a ground for the guitar. This is one of the things I get asked about the most. How do you add a Floyd Rose to a guitar that doesn't have one already? It's doable, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. The MM1 already had a Strat style tremolo, so I'll show you how I added a Floyd Rose to it. Obviously, you need all the right tools and you need some templates. My shop assistant, Ryan, is also a great machinist, and he made me these brackets that I can line up with a guitar that has a Strat style tremolo, and it'll show me exactly where I need to drill my first pilot holes. This all ties into what I was talking about earlier with the guitar's scale length and the mathematics of the fretboard. If these holes aren't drilled to a very precise space, it's going to throw the whole guitar off. If you add these holes too close to the neck or too far away from the neck, even by just 1/8 of an inch, it's possible you won't be able to intonate this guitar so the notes line up with the frets correctly. We'll call that the X-axis. Looking at how the guitar is oriented in this photo, if I were to drill these holes too high or too low, we'll call this the Y-axis. Then the strings won't be properly aligned with the neck, and we'll have strings coming off the fretboard when you go to do a bend or a vibrato. So if these holes are drilled even 1/8 of an inch off in any direction, it's really going to mess things up. The next thing I do is kind of dry fit the Floyd Rose and see how much space I'm going to need to route out from the bottom side. And when I simulate a dive bomb from this side, on the back side, the tremolo block is hitting up against here. So I'm going to have to remove some material from there. But first I'll bring the guitar up to my drill press because I need these holes to be perfectly perpendicular to the guitar's body. Here I'm just boring out the 2 holes I drilled using my template to a larger size to accommodate the bushings for the Floyd Rose mounting studs. Again, this is all something I would do before painting normally, but with Eddie's guitar, he played it in the red, white, and black phase for a while without the Floyd Rose. So if I get any paint chipping, it's just going to add to the relic look. Still, I tap it in real slow, real light with a real small hammer. As I start getting it close to the body, I'll put a wooden dowel in between the bushing and my hammer so I don't accidentally hit the top of the guitar and chip a huge piece of it off. Next, I flip the guitar over and add some tape. Again, it is a relic. It doesn't really matter if I get some scratches or chips on it, but let's not get too crazy. So I'm going to be running a router back and forth across the back of this guitar, and there's going to be chips and sawdust and all kinds of stuff, so it's going to scratch the guitar significantly, and I'll protect it from that. Now it's time to remove some material here. I use a router with a ball bearing bit. With a router, you don't want to remove too much material at once, so I go in multiple passes about 3/8 of an inch each time. As long as I get my first pass looking good, the next ones will be real easy because the ball bearing is just going to follow the path that I made with my first pass. After a few passes, we're good to go. Now coming back to the top, I need to add a little more clearance for the block on the top. Now I can see there's plenty of room for a dive bomb here. I'll also need to use the router to add a shelf to the neck so I can add my locking nut. And the last thing I'll need to do is shim the neck so that the angle is the proper angle for a Floyd Rose to match up. That step comes in a little while during assembly. A Floyd Rose sits differently than a Strat style bridge. When you look from the side here, you'll notice that the neck sits at an angle. I would either have to cut into the body to let the Floyd Rose sit recessed into the body, or I can shim the neck so the neck angles it up towards the Floyd Rose. This is what we'll be using to shim the neck. It's a 1-degree neck shim from StewMac. It gets installed right here between the body and the neck. Looking at the shim from the side, you can actually see the angle. It gets installed so the headstock is actually going to tilt back from the guitar now. And this will let the Floyd Rose sit at the proper height without having to be recessed. Those are the basic steps for installing a Floyd Rose on a guitar that didn't have one before, if it had a tremolo installed. Now let's transition over to the Bumblebee here. The Bumblebee Wolfgang came out great. The clear coat looks awesome. I spent a lot of time level sanding the clear coat and polishing it up, and it looks good. I also added an Iron Age kill switch and FU tone noiseless springs. This is actually the third guitar I built for this customer. I built him a red, white, and black classic Frankenstrat Wolfgang, black and white Wolfgang, and now the Bumblebee Wolfgang. So he's going to have all three of them next to each other on the wall. And he also has a stealth Wolfgang, so he's got 4 of them going across, and this one's just going to complete the puzzle. As I said before, this Wolfgang started its life wearing matte army green paint job. To paint a Bumblebee, you start off by painting the yellow. Here it is next to the second EVH guitar I ever painted. I was actually using it to copy the paint striping. The next step will be to spray the black on it, so everywhere we put tape in this step is going to stay yellow, and that's what's going to give it the Bumblebee look. And now the fun part, to unwrap the guitar. This is sped up over 30 times the original speed, so it took about 10 minutes to unwrap. The Bumblebee is pretty similar to the white and black version of the Frankenstrat, but when you add the third color on top of the original Frankenstrat, that takes about 30 minutes to unwrap. Okay, it turned out great. It looks awesome. Eddie really nailed it with his color choices on this guitar and the original Frankenstrat. Some Wolfgangs I build I do with a clear coat, and some I do in relic style, so it looks like an old beat up one just like Eddie played. All 3 that I did for this customer have been with a clear coat. What do you guys like better, gloss finished or relic finished Frankenstrats? Personally, I like them both, but I think I lean towards the relic ones more. Let me know down in the comments which ones you guys prefer, relic or high gloss finish. By the way, I want to say thanks so much to everybody who's been watching the show, sharing it on your social media, tagging people in the posts about it. I've been getting a ton of customer guitars and filling out a ton of quotes for people, and I really appreciate it. So thank you guys so much, and if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on this video, leave me comments throughout the video, and be sure to hit the notification bell to be notified every time I put out a new video. If you guys want me to rebuild your guitar and have it on the show, then send me an email, mark@guitarguts.com. My contact information is also down in the description below. I love taking on people's projects for them, so send me an email and we'll start talking about some custom options for you. If you have an idea for a crazy guitar you want me to build for you, same thing, mark@guitarguts.com. Email me and we'll brainstorm and we'll come up with something really cool for you. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. Please keep sharing it on your social medias. That's helping the word spread about the show, and it's been amazing, all the comments, the likes, all that stuff, so I really appreciate it. Be sure, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to be notified every time I put out a new video. Check out my Sunday show, Sunday Morning Shred, where I talk about behind the scenes of this show. I do Q&As, I show off some of the fans' guitars, and play the videos of them talking about the guitars, have guests on, all kinds of really cool guitar-related content. So, thanks so much, and I'll see you guys in the next video.